Hello everybody, welcome back to the Carver's Wood Shop. I'm outside, we're going to discuss a couple things. I've got Marvin on my lap here, the cat, and I'll show him to you in a little bit here. He's just sitting on my lap here for a bit. But what I want to go over today, I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds here until some people pop in. Hello, welcome, welcome. Hello. I don't know if I can see the comments. I hopefully will see the comments pop up if you have any questions at all. We'll see. All right. Well, what I wanted to go over today is first of all, I have Marvin on my lap. Here's Marvin. Say hello, Marvin. Say hello. Anyway, uh, we're outside. It's a hot summer day here in Pennsylvania. It got up into the 90, I think 92 or so today, and it's finally cooling off. But I want to go over a couple of things about um, hi Jack, hi Jenny, hi Jane. I want to go over some of the things about doing craft shows. Some of you didn't see the cat. Here's the cat. That's Marvin. Say hi, Marvin. Okay. Anyway, um, what I want to go over is how do you find the shows? A lot of people wonder where do you find the shows. All you have to do is Google wood carving shows. You'll find them all over the country. There are some that are better than others. Um, some are very small, some are very large. I was asked by a gentleman in England, what is a good show to go to? Well, of course, I would say the Lancaster County Woodcarver Show is probably one of the larger ones here in the area, but there's also the Ward Show, which is wildlife, and that's all it is. There's no caricatures that I know there. I went there like 20, 30 years ago. I went to it. It's huge. It was a huge, huge show. And that one's in Ocean City, Maryland. But if you're interested in doing a show, there's several different types. You can do craft shows, you can do wood carving shows, but you have to remember if you do a craft show or a wood carving show, the clientele is going to be a little bit different. If you do bazaars, the clientele is going to be a little bit different. It depends what you're carving and how you're carving. If you're carving a lot of little things like ornaments and you can do them fast enough, then a bazaar might be okay for you if you're okay with $5 or $6 or $7 for a piece. If you're putting a lot of time into it, then you have to be kind of picky and choosy where you're going to go and where the venue is. That's so important. Usually the venue, if you have any questions about doing shows, just post them. I can read it online as I'm chatting here. Um, so the Ward show is one if you'd like to do a lot of wildlife. The other show is the Lancaster show, and there's several in the area. There's the William Rush show. It's a little smaller. Hello, Nina. Um, so it's really up to you where you want to go to do a show. First of all, getting enough inventory is a big thing. Whether you're going to really sell anything at a carving show. Some of people just display. They don't sell anything. First of all, they don't want to sell their stuff. They don't know how to price their stuff. And pricing is probably one of the most difficult things to do in carving. Anything is just worth what people are willing to pay for it. I have a rule of thumb where I charge somewhere between $10 per inch for a carving. So if it's 8 inches, it's $80. If it's 5 inches, it's $50. But it also depends how much work you put into that carving. If it's really intricate and it's very detailed, you may want to just go ahead and charge a little bit more. And it depends on the venue that you go to. If you go to a venue that is a bazaar, you're not going to get $50 for your carvings. If you go to an elite place, um, you know, then where there's more money and people don't mind dropping $30 or $40 for a carving, which isn't a lot for $30 is normal for ornaments and such, then that's fine to do that. Indoor, outdoor. Well, of course, if you're indoor, they usually supply the table for you. They usually, you have to provide the cover of the table and anything else that you're doing. Like you got to bring everything with you. I think the most exhausting part of doing a show is the prep beforehand. When I came back from Shady Maple this past weekend, I had talked to so many people. I came home, made dinner, and I fell asleep in the chair, and I didn't move till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I was out. And the next day, I left everything in the trailer. It was locked up. I didn't bother with it until Sunday night. I started pulling a couple things out that I needed, and that's just part of doing shows. Shows are a lot of work. People have no idea how much work it is to set up, to break it down. And if you're doing an outdoor show, then you'll need a pop up tent of some sort for the elements. I'm lucky enough to have a pop up trailer that I use a lot. Not a lot, but I'm using it more now. Again, the last couple of years I wasn't able to use it a lot. But I have so many comments on that pop-up trailer. It was really quite amazing. Okay, what do you want? Okay, I have um, I have Marvin with me today. Here he is. Anyway, uh, uh, he's been fussing here. Uh, so if you do an outdoor show, then I would recommend getting an easy up tent and to make sure that it doesn't leak. The pop-up is great if you decide to go that route with a pop-up. Make sure you have a vehicle that can pull it. Make sure that especially if you're in Pennsylvania, make sure it's a registered pop-up. Otherwise, you will not be able to get it registered in Pennsylvania. I mean, make sure it has a title to it, is what I meant to say. Um, if you're in another state, they're not as picky about that as Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is very particular how they want the pop-up to be titled, and they don't want anything that's stolen on the road or anything like that. So if you want to make it legal in Pennsylvania, make sure you have a title. Painting, I would tell you the amount of money I put into that trailer was not. It was about $800 to $900 by the time I bought it, because I didn't know about the title. The title was a bit of a problem because it was from New Jersey, and it cost me almost $300 with a notary to get that taken care of. And then, of course, painting it and stripping it out and stuff, and buying it and all the stuff that I put in it. I put about $40, $50 repainting it this year. If you sand it down, that would be better, but I didn't bother doing that. Um, so, the other thing with a pop up, if you're deciding to go that route, make sure it goes up and down. I have two other pop ups here that don't really go up and down so well, and it can be expensive to repair that. So if you decide to go that route, then you want to make sure that those things will crank up and that the cables are fine. If you have all that hello John, if you have that all set up, then if you have the title and it goes up and down, then you can start and making sure the roof doesn't leak. That's a biggie. Make sure the roof is in fairly decent condition. I know since COVID that is a little more difficult to find them. I was getting them anywhere from $200 to $500 for a trailer, an old one. They're going up for $1,000 now for something old that's in fairly decent shape, probably the 90s, the late 90s, early 90s, early 80s. You want to just be real careful doing that. Hello, Jim and Beth. So if you're deciding to go with the pop-up, you want to make sure the roof is good, you want to make sure it goes up and down, and make sure you have a title. So the other problem with the pop-up is some shows can't accommodate that. They want the tents. So you want to make sure you tell them that you have a pop-up. Some shows will require to be done by jury, meaning you have to submit your work to them. They have to have it in front of a committee. And I ran into a a very interesting person this past weekend. I can't tell you all the details because it's not done yet. but it's a big show here in Pennsylvania, and they were interested in me coming. Inventory is another issue. You know, if you really do a lot of carving, your inventory is going to be, start with 100 pieces if you can when you do a show. You might only sell 10, but that's fine because you want to have people to have um, the ability to choose and to look through stuff that you have. And the fuller it looks, the better it looks. If it looks really empty, it doesn't look great. I use turntables. I guess you saw that in some of my carvings, the turntables that I use. Yes, they use electric. So what do I do when I'm not near electric, like out at Hay Creek or out at the Apple Fest? I have I'm going to show you what I just bought. Um, I have a battery and an inverter that you plug stuff into, and it will run if you decide to do it that way. I was lucky enough at Shady. At night, I did not have hookup because I was too far away from the building, but then I moved it closer to the building for Saturday because I was the only vendor there, and it ended up that I could hook up to electric. I'm going to show you something here real quick. My phone is now running on this little thing. This is called a 150 Ryobi inverter. And this is fairly new. It's a battery operated. You just take it out. You can just pop this battery off and put another one in. And if I have a 6 amp or a 6 AH battery on this will run my turntable for about an hour and 10 minutes. So if you only want to do it periodically, you can. It charges my phone, which I'm doing now, and it's around $60. They had a deal with this with 2 batteries for $99 and this for free. So I couldn't pass that up because the more batteries I have, the better around the farm. I use it for all kinds of stuff. I also use a Ryobi lighting in the trailer. I took a spotlight and shined it off the top of the trailer, which on the inside, which illuminated the whole trailer, lighting is a very important thing when you set up. The more light you have, the more inviting it is. So if you're doing a show, whether it's indoor or outdoor, lighting is, well, if it's outdoor during the day, you're not going to need it. But if you're indoor, I remember taking 5 or 6 lamps with me to the Lancaster show, and it just popped out. I mean, it just stood out compared to everything else that was there, and it will draw people to your stand. The other thing is have a feature thing that you have at your stand that people might be interested in. There were 2 things this past weekend that were very interesting for people. Was the Noah's Ark and Little Bernie that I did, and I sold my last Bernie. I did 9 of them since last year, and some of them I gave away as gifts, but I ended up selling him, and he was a hit. People laugh, things that you can draw people in to encourage a conversation. A good PR also is ask them where they're from. When I was at Shady, I found people from West Virginia, from Arizona, from Massachusetts, from New York, from Philadelphia. They were from all over. So if you get in a good venue that you have a lot of tourists come in, ask them where they're from. They like to talk about where they're from, or at least know where they're. I always found it not just for the sake of asking them, but I enjoy talking to people. And if you can have somebody help you at a show, that would also help, because people want to talk to you, but if they're waiting in line, they're not going to wait for 15-20 minutes until you're done talking to someone. And you don't want to cut somebody off because they came to the show or they came to see you. You want to take the time. So if you have somebody else there with you, it's good that they know the products a little bit. Maybe another wood carver can help you. Maybe a spouse or significant other can help you with that. I'm trying to think. Some people wanted to put a deposit down on a couple of things. I am not a fan of taking orders because then it becomes work for me. I enjoy carving what I want at the time. I set them up. If you want it and you love it and you take it, that's a best sale for me. But a lot of times I find that if you take, and some people just take orders, they'll take a deposit. I do not do that. I had one lady willing to give me a deposit. I said no. I said if I decide to make another one, you'll be the first one I'll call if I get it done and if I get one completed. But taking deposits, you're telling people you're going to guarantee that you're going to make something for them. And one of the problems with carving something for someone, say, if somebody saw one of my sandals, say, well, I want one just like that. Well, it doesn't always turn out that way, because it's handwork. What their perception of what it should look like and what you actually do might be two different things, and they may not be happy with it. So, with that being said, I prefer to put the things out and and you decide which one you want because it's already done, it's all ready to go out, and you don't have to worry about it. What else? And that's about it. Doing these shows, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of prep work to it. It's just not setting up a table, throwing some stuff on, and sitting there for 4 or 5 or 8 hours and then going home. It takes a lot of energy and forethought to get things done. And I drug so much to this show, to this event this past weekend. A lot of it I didn't use, but you never know when you might need it and when you might not, when you might need it. So, I rather be prepared than unprepared in a place like that. So you've got to remember to bring your lighting, your cords, your carvings, your carving box, uh, make sure you have things labeled, your shelves, your tables, your covers. That's all part of it. And some of it I do in the trailer for the next time around. Sometimes I don't. It depends. If I have an indoor show, I've got to use the stuff out of the trailer. And actually, an indoor show is somewhat harder and easier. Easier in the sense that if you have a 2-day show, you can leave everything as it is. You don't have to worry about elements. Um, the outdoor show, when I'm done, I put everything to the floor and I lower the pop-up and I'm ready to go the next day. It takes me about a half an hour to set it back up. But I had a real problem with this past weekend with the rolling storms that came in. I got drenched trying to lower the one side because I have sides on it, and it was not fun. But after the second storm, I thought it's time to go home. So sometimes you got to just say, hey, the weather's not cooperating. It's time to go. So I hope these tips are good for you. And if you decide to do a show in the future, just make sure you have enough inventory, and enjoy it. I'm going to do this as long as I enjoy it. I'm going to keep carving and doing shows. The day it becomes a job, I will not be doing it. So, and it's a great retirement thing to do. A lot of guys, like I said, will set up and they won't sell their stuff, and that's okay to do that too. But if you're going to a craft fair or more of that kind of thing other than a wood carving, then they kind of expect you to sell your stuff. And prices. Okay, prices are all over the board. I was able to go this week with very little invested in it for the space. But normally I pay anywhere from $80 to $100 for a weekend. And you have to sell enough to make that back up. And then you start making money on it, or you start earning some money on it. And then you got to figure your gas, what you eat, if you decide to eat down there, if you decide to bring your own food. A lot of times if I'm by myself, I bring my own food so I don't have to go anywhere. But cost can be anywhere from $35, $40, $50 to set up to $200. It depends what the venue is. So you got to weigh that. And one thing I always ask is, what is the attendance at a show? What is the attendance at the show? Is it a few thousand people? Is it, the one guy told me there was 54,000 people that went through this show, maybe more. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. And it's an all-week event, and I think they may have 100,000 people go through the whole week, but for the weekend, it's somewhere around 50 to 60,000 people go through. And, I have to think about that. if it's where people have more cash to get rid of, and it's more an elite area, that's where carvings will sell. And the other thing is, if you're doing a lot of intricate work, and people scoff at the idea of saying, okay, I want this much money for it, and they go, oh my goodness, that's too much money. Well, they're never going to pay for it. But the right person, it's happened to me this weekend. Somebody wanted to order something, and I put a price out there thinking, nobody will, if they didn't bat an eye at it, not one eyeball at it. And I said, well, if I decide to make one, I'll certainly do that. So you just never know who you're going to run into. You never know the connections you'll get going to a show, no matter how small it is or how big it is. I would say this past weekend it was more connections. So, and I did okay with the sales. In the summertime, the sales are not good, especially if you're geared for Christmas. It's not good. So I'm going to finish it up with that. I want to thank you for joining me. I'll put this on the YouTube, so if you need some information about setting up or some tips and stuff, you can just watch the video there. And I hope you all have a wonderful week and a safe one. And I'm outside in Mother's old chair here in the corner of the uh, deck. So, yes, I wanted Jack to know that. Okay, very good. Say hi to Jenny and the family for me, Jack. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Take care and God bless. Bye bye.